Welcome to my very special VE Day assembly. As you can see, I've dressed for the occasion. I thought it was appropriate, as it was bank holiday, to talk to you about VE Day. I also think it's really appropriate that now we make some comparisons, because quite a few people that I've spoken to have said to me, this is like being at war. And in fact, some of my elderly relatives have told me that it's sometimes worse, sometimes better. So what is VE Day and why are we celebrating it? Well, it's 75 years since we had VE Day in 1945. In fact, VE Day was on April the 30th, 1945. And it commemorates the victory in Europe at the end of the Second World War. It was the day that Germany finally surrendered. Berlin was completely surrounded by opposing forces and Adolf Hitler had died. And so we celebrate VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. It was a day of huge celebrations in this country and mostly, of course, in London. Everybody was out on the streets. You couldn't move for people. Parties went on well into the night. Piccadilly Circus was full to the brim of people, as was Trafalgar Square. In fact, all the streets of London were full of people partying into the night. You may have even yourself seen some iconic photographs from those days. People up to their knees in water in the Trafalgar Square fountain. Sailors randomly kissing women they'd never met because they were so excited and so happy that the war was finally over. And I'm sure, not long in the future, we will have opportunities to do the same, to go out and celebrate the end of lockdown with the people that we love, to go and see people that we haven't seen for many weeks, and to celebrate the fact that we are free, and we have been free for the last 75 years, thanks to the people who fought for us and some who died for us during the Second World War. I think it's interesting that we're making comparisons between what it's like to be in lockdown and what it was like to be in World War II. And some of those iconic images have been recreated during lockdown. So here is Piccadilly Circus during the celebrations on VE Day, and here is Piccadilly Circus during lockdown. Here is Trafalgar Square. This is a really iconic picture of these four very happy young people celebrating the liberation of the country. And here is Trafalgar Square during lockdown. I'm particularly fond of the duck. But what are the similarities and differences between lockdown and being in World War II? I think it's interesting and we should make some comparisons. So, for example, at the moment we cannot go to our favourite restaurants. We can't go and get our favourite takeaways. Shame. But during World War II, we were rationed. We couldn't eat the foods that we wanted to eat. Have a look at this table of the sort of things that were rationed during World War II, and have a look at the amounts that was available to you. One jar of jam had to last you 4 months. As a family, you were given 1 egg a week. And this rationing didn't end on VE Day because we still couldn't get the things that we needed. And so, in fact, rationing went on until 1954, 9 years after the war. And we worry about not being able to get what we need from our Tesco's or Sainsbury's delivery. And what about school? Well, we have asked you to stay away from school, to keep yourself safe and to do your online work. But in 1939, when we declared war on Germany, we had to keep our children safe in a different way. And I'm sure many of you know that children were evacuated to rural areas of the country from the bigger cities. What would that have been like? Not just going home from school and staying safe indoors, but being sent to live with a complete stranger. Now, I know some of you are getting quite bored at home, despite the amount of work we're setting you and the things your parents are trying to do to entertain you. My son commented only the other week that Netflix needs to sort itself out because he couldn't download a whole programme at once. He was getting quite frustrated. In World War II, you would sit very quietly around a radio at certain times of the day, and the lights would be out just in case there was an air raid. You didn't want the light being seen by the flyers overhead. Now, we're not allowed to gather. We are not allowed to gather in public places, and there have been several arrests in Sussex over the last few weeks of people who've tried to get to the beach for the day or think it was okay just to go out with their mates because they were getting so frustrated indoors. Well, in World War II, you wouldn't have done that. If you went out, there was a high chance that you could have been bombed and killed. And if the air raid sirens went off, then you would gather. Have a look at this. You would gather underground in the tube stations where you would stay all night and hope when the all clear sirens went off in the morning that the house you had left the night before was still standing. Communication. Well, we are so lucky we can communicate. I'm communicating with you now, and I'm sure many of you have used Zoom or Hangouts or another app to talk to your relatives. How many of you have spent some patient time teaching your nan or your granddad how to use Zoom so that they can talk to you? We're very lucky we can do that. We can talk to people across the other side of the world in an instant. In World War II, you wrote a letter and you hoped. To finish this assembly, I'm going to read a letter that I found written to a soldier in the forces during World War II. It was obviously written to him by his wife or his girlfriend, and it really does tell us and share with us how it must have felt in those days to leave a loved one and not see them for months, sometimes even years. I know that being in lockdown is hard and missing your friends is even harder, but we will come out of the other side of this, and we are looking forward to having you back in school really soon. Have a wonderful bank holiday weekend, work hard and stay safe. My dearest Will, I feel I must write you again, dear, although there is not much news to tell you. I wonder how you are getting on. I shall be so relieved to get a letter from you. I can't help feeling a bit anxious. I know how you must have felt, darling, when you did not get my letters for so long. Of course, I know you will write as soon as you ever can, but the time seems so dull and weary without any news of you. If only this war was over and we were together again. It will be one day, I suppose. Don't think I'm worrying unnecessarily about you, because I know God can take care of you wherever you are. And if it's His will, darling, He will send you back to me. I wonder how your cousins are getting on. We are feeling very anxious about George, as no news has come from him yet. We can't understand why his wife doesn't write. How are your hands now? Mine are very sore, so chapped, and my left hand has got several chilblains on it, and they do irritate. I could scratch it to bits. Have you been receiving the books I have sent you? There has been a bit of a fuss about Arthur this week. He has been trying to get in the army, unbeknown to his parents, but Mrs. T thought his parents ought to be informed about it, so she wrote and told him about him, and he had to go home in hot haste last night. I guess he got in a fine row, but he won't say today. He's as miserable as anything. Really, Will, I never saw a boy such as he is. I'm afraid he's going to the bad. I don't know if Mrs. T will keep him or not. He says he has to join up in a fortnight, but as he is underage, I suppose his parents can stop him. I don't know whether they will or not. For my part, I hope he does go. He will be jolly good riddance, for as there's nothing but rows and deceitfulness going on while he is here. Well, darling, I don't know much more to say now. So we'll close with fondest love and kisses from your loving girl, Emily. P.S. darling, cheer up and don't worry about me. I am quite all right, only anxious to get your letters. I know you're finding lockdown a challenge sometimes, but we are fighting a different war now, and one that we must all help to support so that we will win. VE Day is a day to thank all the people who fought for us for our freedom. And so today, I would like to thank all of those who fought for us during the war, and the frontline workers and key workers who are fighting for us now, today. Thank you, all of you. Stay safe, everyone, and have a lovely bank holiday weekend.